7 days. 7 days without food, 7 days without water.
All right, so the 7-day hard dry fast has officially begun. It is 1800 hours local time, Central Standard Time here in Austin. So for the next 168 hours, no food, no water, no contact with water, nothing. Let's see what happens. I won't be talking too much more, but let's see where it goes.
Sounds extreme, right? But this wasn't just about not eating or not drinking. This was a 7-day hard dry fast, meaning not only did I not consume food or water, I had zero contact with water. No hand washing, no teeth brushing, no bathing, zero exposure of my skin to water for 7 days. That's 168 hours. It was one of the most profound journeys of my life. This wasn't about testing my limits. This was about breaking through them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, intellectually. And today, I'm here to tell you what led me to it, what I experienced during it, and what I've learned since. Let me start by telling you why. Why would anyone want to go 7 days without food, let alone 7 days without water? Why would anyone want to go 7 days without brushing their teeth or 7 days without bathing? For me, this was not about punishment. It wasn't some bizarre experiment in masochism. It was about stripping away everything that feels essential and asking, who am I without it? What am I? Am I okay? Will I be okay? In a world over inundated with noise, distraction, comfort, we have lost touch with our raw, innate, primal senses of humanity, the being part of human being. We've traded instincts for industrialized luxuries, and in doing so, we have distanced ourselves from our true nature. This fast was a way for me to reconnect with that. It was for me to reclaim the clarity, the simplicity, the purity, and the power that modern life can most certainly obscure. This journey also had a deeply personal dimension. As a current graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin, I am surrounded by an academic environment steeped in data, conventional dietary teachings, and lots of very rigid frameworks on the subject matter. But for me, that represents such an amazing opportunity to be around so many people that have a different opinion than my own, who have different beliefs than mine, who think that maybe what I'm doing is even crazy, stupid, reckless, dangerous. But to be surrounded by that is almost more of the motivation for me to do it. To be able to listen, understand, be curious, intrigued, mystified by how people think differently than I do, even amidst the same formal teachings that we're both receiving. We just happen to see the world a few different ways. I decided to take this on during our finals week. To me, it's the best time to do so. Why not? Find out who I really am, up against the wall, up against tough odds, to see what it's really like to function at that level amidst adversity. And again, this wasn't just about physical resilience. It was about intellectual curiosity and conviction, passion, just general basic interest, wonder, awe. I chose to challenge the narratives of modern nutrition, literally whilst in the heart of the lion's den, because I was actually seeking wisdom in a practice that is older than the science itself. This wasn't seeing if I could survive without food or water. I knew I was gonna survive. I wasn't afraid of dying, irrespective of what we've all been told or made to believe, that the human body can't go more than 3 days without water. It can't go more than 7 days without food, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Even in my class, things about fasting came up and through instruction, how and what the body can do amid certain circumstances and while under certain types of stress, how long it can endure, perform, survive, thrive. But there I was, still alive, not dead after 3 days, not dying after 3 days. Made me question a lot. So no, it wasn't about whether I would survive or not. I knew I would. But it was really about shedding everything I thought made me who I am. Could I exist without the routines, comforts, and pleasures that I'd always relied on? Could I strip life down to its most barest form and still find meaning, purpose? That's what this journey was truly about. There's something inherently spiritual about minimalism. The Buddhists call it letting go. But it's not just about detachment. It's about rediscovery, going within. True, deeply rooted introspection, delving into the caverns, the abyss, because when you strip life away to its absolute barest form, and you're left with two questions. Number one, what truly matters? And number two, who am I without everything that I think I need? Since the beginning of recorded history, humans have been fasting. Throughout our evolution, from feast and famine, the abundance and prevalence and availability of resources, water, food, etc., was not always there. We have had to evolve this way by default. Finding water, seeing what was in season, hunting animals, gathering certain things that we could eat, that we could live on while they were available, when they were available. And in recorded history, 3 things have been used ubiquitously throughout by those trying to seek higher states of consciousness, elevated spirituality, theologians, thought leaders, the greatest minds of any time. Pick up any religious text, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, any of your like, you'll find 3 things that have been used to get to those places, to talk to higher powers, to find and speak to God. Extended treks, prolonged fasting, and isolation. Ancient Greeks like Pythagoras and Hippocrates advocated for fasting for clarity and health. Indigenous cultures throughout history have used fasting to prepare for vision quests and rites of passage. None of these practices were backed by clinical studies, randomized controlled trials, or meta-analyses. Yet their wisdom endures, because this is where science lags behind intuition. The benefits of fasting, autophagy, improved insulin sensitivity, enhanced cognitive function, are only now being quantified. But these events were understood, if not named, long before laboratories were around to do so and give and grant their blessing. And that's one of the paradoxes that I love most. The ancient wisdom of fasting often feels more profound than what modern science can explain. It's like we have a short-sightedness of the past, or this strange loyalty to such a hyper sense of the present. I mean, the agencies and the organizations that we lay loyalty to, give credence to their rhetoric, truth, dogma even, are less than 100 years old. The American Medical Association, the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, the GAPS protocol, blood type dieting, any of the nouveau fad, let's say, diets or basic understandings of what's good, not good, healthy or unhealthy for us. Most of those organizations, 90% of which are less than 100 years old. Some of them less than 20. Some of those beliefs less than that. It's like we've forgotten about the principles of biochemistry, human anatomy, physiology, simple science that predates much of that. But even still, these philosophies predate the science. The proof is literally there. It's just that because it's not recorded, we can't give it dignity and acceptance and belief. Because what we often seek from science in the form of validation has been around for centuries, if not millennia, if not far longer. But unless it gets, and until it gets, the stamp of approval from one of those named agencies or organizations, or from some type of legitimized science, we can't give it the thumbs up. And because modern frameworks don't explain immediately, people hesitate. Yet, this is not about waiting for permission from a study. It's about listening to what our bodies and our ancestral knowledge, our freaking DNA, have been telling us all along. And once you delve into this realm, your emotions, your preconceived notions, your societal norms, your conditioning, your familial influences, your religions, how you were raised, what you were grown up on, where you grew up, what you thought about the world, about life, about anything, will be questioned and it'll be challenged. And that crisis of identity is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to something like this, like a 7-day hard dry fast, because everything you thought you know will come into question, and your feelings will begin to supersede and combat with what you thought to have been real and perfect and absolute. And it is that feeling that will become your only understanding. No longer your emotions, no longer what you thought was real or right or perfect or for sure. Your feelings now will tell you something possibly completely different. And that is a hard thing to bear. So for me, preparing for the 7-day hard dry fast was pretty simple. Heavy front load of saturated fat by way of good quality red meat. I chose top sirloin, picanha particularly, because I love getting all that lean sirloin meat, nice bits of fat with every bite from the hearty fat cap. I had about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of that with a bunch of watermelon sprinkled with lime juice and dusted with big flaky sea salt and some coconut water. So I had lots of good nutrient dense food by way of the picanha, good and healthy fats, plenty of amino acids, vitamins and minerals all throughout that, and then of course the balance of electrolytes that came by way of the fruit and the coconut water. So day 1 was pretty easy, physically at least. I mean, sure, I wanted to drink water, but it was more so just out of the habit of, I get up every morning, I have a sip of water. I get up every morning, I warm a glass of water. I get up every morning. It was just this routine, this thing that I've been so used to and doing for so many years and for so often, and that is healthy. And here I am not doing it, so I'm immediately thinking, oh, this is bad. Am I missing out? Am I sleeping on the watch? Am I betraying myself and my habits and my routine and my program of health? But then throughout the day, I started to realize, wow, how much of that is me just going to that out of almost like a tick. I need a sip of water, I need a sip of water. But did I actually need it, or did I just want it? Was I killing time? Was I just trying to fill a void? Was I bored? Once you take that away, you realize all that internal dialogue that comes out that you never thought of being there before, but all of a sudden it's on the surface and in your face. So I was fine physically. I knew my body still had plenty of reserves to burn. I was still burning off all that glycogen from all the carbohydrates that I had ingested previously. I had plenty of electrolytes on deck, so I know I had plenty to work with just in my stomach and already throughout my body. Didn't have any doubts. I was mentally very confident. I'd been at this place before. The longest dry fast I'd done previous to this one was 72 hours, so I knew what these feelings felt like and I was prepared. And I'd also done a long water fast of 5 days or 120 hours, so I was pretty confident. I felt okay. Wasn't really worried about anything. Like I said, having this little tick of wanting to drink and just feeling weird not doing it. I decided for this 7 days I was not gonna work out intensely, no running, no crazy workouts that I like to do, big 2-a-days. Obviously, I'm not in the sauna, I'm not in the cold plunge because there's no showering, there's no bathing, there's no hand washing, there's no teeth brushing. So all I did for exercise was basic movement, stretching, a little bit of flow, and daily walks and light bike rides, nothing else. After the first day, sleep the first night was great. I went to sleep really easily and slept all full 8 hours and woke up, fired up and ready to go for day 2. First thing I did on day 2 was get on the scale and I was down 3.5 pounds. So just, seeing that as superficial water, all right, no big deal. Nothing crazy as far as the news to me. I wasn't expecting anything more, much more than that over a 24-hour period. So to see that 3.5 pound reduction, I thought was pretty standard. I didn't have any hunger on the start of day 2. Typically throughout any fast, my hunger kind of goes away right after that 24-hour mark. The toughest part is usually right around 20 hours. And that's when it's like, God, I really want to eat. But once I passed 24 hours, I was pretty solid, slept through that, and then woke up, 8 hours later. So there I am right around the 32-hour mark on day 2, feeling fine, already looking towards 36 hours, and then knowing that 48 is right down the road later on. So again, places I've been before from having already fasted 72 hours in a dry fast in the past and knowing what 5 days felt like with the water fast, I was pretty confident, feeling pretty good. But now I started to have some different emotional cues and different emotional friction. I just started to realize how often I would turn to not just food, even water. It's not like it's just sustenance. It can be literally a distraction, an escape, a form of escape, just to break up a moment, to get us through something, kill some time. And not having that, I was forced to essentially face everything I'd been avoiding, even if it wasn't necessarily things I was procrastinating from, like, unchecked boxes or chores that I hadn't finished, but just made me realize how much exercise, community experiences, showering, getting in the cold plunge, drinking water, how much that gives to me, how much that makes me feel good, absolutely, and how much it also maybe covers up some things to help me not feel so bad. I had a lot of confidence in my ability throughout the fast and before the fast because I'd been really following the work of Dr. Sergey Filanov for quite some time with him, even having the privilege of communicating with him online. And Dr. Filanov, for anyone that doesn't know, is kind of the premier authority, I would say, if there is such a thing, in dry fasting. He comes by way of Siberia, so the far east of Russia, and for what many people would consider very unconventional, radical, or whatnot. But Dr. Filanov's book and Dr. Filanov's words and teachings and theories and protocols are something that I very much respect and admire. So I had a lot of belief in that, and that was really giving me a lot of confidence to be able to succeed. I knew about certain symptoms, to what to expect. I kind of was prepared for those and was able to kind of follow along the breadcrumb trail as I was feeling, how I was feeling as I was descending further and further down the rabbit hole. The night of day 2 was pretty good again, past the 48-hour mark, was feeling fine. I slept quite well again, went to sleep pretty soundly, pretty quickly, and slept throughout the night with no issues. Same as on day 1, I urinated still several times throughout the day, was pretty surprised by that. My urine was clear to slightly yellow, no burning, no tingling, no issues, no irritation. I didn't use the toilet, no number 2. No number 2 throughout the entire dry fast. How about that? So even after all that beef and all that watermelon and all that coconut water the night before, I had no bowel movements for the entire 7 days. Pretty cool. Day 3, I knew was the beginning of stepping into uncharted territory. So coming up on that 60-hour mark, knowing that 72 hours was not too far away, and getting 65 and knowing it was closer and closer, that was the furthest I'd ever been in a dry fast, 72 hours, 3 days. So as I was fast approaching that, I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be interesting, pretty cool. And so now continuing to lose that 3.5 pounds per day, I'd already passed a full gallon's worth of water. So before I started the fast, I took a full analysis of my body composition, and based on that was able to calculate exactly how much total body water I was carrying, and I came up with roughly 16 gallons. It was like 15.9. So water weighs 8.5, roughly 8.5 pounds per gallon. It's like 8.345 to be exact, but water weighs roughly 8.5 pounds per gallon. So I came up with, like I said, I was carrying 16 gallons. So as I had 3.5 pounds lost per day, once I realized I'd lost a gallon, a little over a gallon, I was like, wow, I can really feel it. My lips were chapped. I was starting to get a little dryness around the mouth. My tongue, for sure, I could feel the dryness setting in, and just a little bit of physical fatigue. So anywhere else in the world, 15 out of 16 is a really good score. If you got 15 out of 16 on a quiz in school, that's a great grade. If you threw 16 passes and completed 15 of them, that's a great record. That's a great ratio for a quarterback. 15 out of 16 in anything is usually a pretty good result. So to feel the difference of just 1 gallon and say, wow, this feels drastically different, was pretty remarkable. That's how important and impactful water is. That's how critical water is for our survival. That 1 gallon was able to make me feel significantly different, significantly less strong, less able. It's like, wow, 15 out of 16 anywhere else, you're batting pretty well. But you take away 1 gallon from the body, I really felt it. So as I felt those initial reserves starting to kind of bleed out from all the food that I originally eaten before, I knew I was starting to tap into my fat storages now, and my body was starting to suck the water down from itself. Energy was dipping for sure, physical energy, but my mind was hammering with confidence and belief, definitely. The first big signpost for me was the 72-hour mark, because that's the furthest I'd ever been. So I was really close to getting there, and I was definitely eyes on the prize to make it happen. So for me, throughout the fast, it was really about having those little signposts, these little milestones. 4 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours, whatever I needed to do to kind of, same thing like I would do in a marathon. Can't think about 26.2 miles, or if I'm running an ultra, 30 miles, a mile at a time. Go from the single digits, get to the double digits. Go from the teens, get to the 20s. Go from 20s, get to the 30s. Whatever it is, whatever I had to do to break it down, to make it more seemingly manageable in my head. I always say that in the sense of like, the little steps seem like too much, but think about the big picture. So this was me going back and forth between that, thinking about the 7-day finish line, and then going through these little micro moments of one by one, how I'm gonna get there. So even though my energy started to dip on that 3rd day, my mind, it started to sharpen. It was like the fog of daily life was just starting to lift up and evaporate. I started noticing patterns in my thoughts, things that food and even water helped mask, protect, and numb and subdue. I mean, this was like raw, humbling, and uncomfortable, but still I strived on. So once I passed the 72-hour mark on day 3, there was a big boost of confidence. I slept really well again on the 3rd night, went to sleep easy, slept throughout, and woke up energized, ready to rock on day 4. By day 4, something definitely shifted. My body felt like it hit some kind of like reset button. My energy came in waves. There were definitely peaks and valleys. But with that, there would be these like unexpected bursts of clarity. And it wasn't confident, but it reminded me that the body is far more adaptive than we give it credit for. I journaled about it. I wrote this down, basically talking about how amazed I was by how little we need not only to survive, but to actually thrive, and what the body is able to do. I mean, one of the things that I'd read about prior to the fast, kind of thinking about what's it gonna be like, what can I experience, is the phenomena of the body creating endogenous water, or metabolic water, making water within itself. So once all the carbohydrates had been burned out, I mean, once all the glycogen storages had been depleted and my body was starting to tap into its fat storages to burn fat for fuel, going into ketosis, forcing the liver to produce ketones in order to derive energy from its new fuel source by way of our fat storages. As these fatty acids break down, those fatty acids are actually carbon-centric. So they have a carbon molecule at the center of them, and they're surrounded by hydrogen molecules. Well, as they break down those fatty acids, those carbon-centric fatty acids, they release those hydrogen molecules. Our skin, the largest organ in the body, is always breathing. We don't just breathe through our lungs, our mouths, we breathe through our skin. Oxygen comes into the skin by way of the skin breathing. So as those oxygen molecules enter the body through the skin, while those hydrogen molecules are being released by the breakdown of those fatty acids, those released hydrogen molecules pair with the incoming oxygen molecules being breathed by the skin, and they create, you guessed it, H2O. Freaking amazing. That gave me a tremendous boost of confidence and surety as I started to observe my urine color. Again, never really getting past the solid yellow. Never got brown, never got red, never got black, never got disgusting. It got thicker. I could feel there was some sediment in it. Clearly we were scraping the bottoms of some things, but I still had to urinate 2, 3, 4 times a day. Blew my mind. I'd still have saliva in my mouth. I was still able to speak weak. I wasn't parched. My eyes were blinking. I still had liquid and fluid in my tear ducts. Day 4, night number 4 was when my sleep started to become a little interesting. It wasn't bad, but there was definitely a little, ooh, something's different. It was a little tougher for me to go to sleep, and I didn't wake up the best, but it was okay. I was like, all right, if this is the worst, this isn't bad at all. Day 5 was interesting. Before I began the fast, I told myself I was not gonna make some of the same mistakes I did my previous 72-hour dry fast, which was working out too much, talking too much. This time I was gonna work out hardly at all, just with walks and casual bike rides. And I was gonna try to minimize how much I spoke too, so that I could not lose hydration and fluid from speaking. I wanted to preserve as much saliva as I could so I wouldn't be dried out of my mouth. Well, I still have to work. I actually had a couple of podcasts I had to host too, so I couldn't avoid the speaking thing. I had to talk to clients, I had to counsel, I had to coach, I had to mentor, and I had to be a guest on a couple of podcasts. So there were some days, and it started to hit on day 5, where I could tell, okay, I need to kind of slow down a little bit, space my words out, maybe take a beat and kind of get some saliva back in my mouth. But other than that, I was okay. I was definitely tired. I decided to go check out a grocery store. I wanted to smell food. I wanted to walk around and touch things. I wanted to see if my sense of smell was any different, if I could taste through the air, and boy, could I ever. Strawberries, blackberries, oranges, grapefruits, different types of produce. I mean, just apples through the skin, carrots. My sense of smell was so profound. The fruits especially smelled so good. It was quite an experience going to the grocery store. And I did that every day after, throughout the fast. I would go to the store, smell fruit, look at food, and just be around it. People would think, what are you, crazy? Again, this guy with the masochistic kind of sense of self-deplorability. No, it was out of mystification. It was out of just experience. I wanted to experience, I wanted to feel, I wanted to see what this was like, and it was awesome. It was beautiful. And that's, what day 5 was really all about for me. It was about this sense of gratitude, this sense of wonder. Again, I use that word mystification because it's exactly what I was. I was mystified. I was mind blown. I thought about the simple things, the air in my lungs, the feeling of the hairs on my arm as the wind would blow by them, the glow of the sunlight in my eyes, the sounds of the wind blowing through the trees, the sounds of my steps as I would walk, feet hitting the ground, picking up and going back and forth. I didn't just feel alive. I felt deeply connected to life itself. Every small sensation became extraordinary. It's like I'd tuned into a frequency I'd never noticed before. And it's something that now, looking back, I believe we all have. We all have this ultimate antenna that points up to the sky, to higher power, to elevated states of consciousness, enlightenment, whatever it might be. But that antenna operates by line of sight. So if there's anything obstructing its ability to receive and transmit its signal, it's not going to be able to. And that's what daily life, distractions, variables, over inundations of environments and consumption by way of people, things, whatever, blocks that antenna's line of sight and thus disables us from being able to transmit to sometimes what we could call greatness, or the infinite intelligence that exists within us all. I continued the same amount of weight loss, roughly 3.5 pounds per day throughout each of the days. As I was dropping these gallons of water, I could definitely feel my physical ability losing a little bit of itself, but mentally I was solid. Day 5 was another signpost for me. The longest I'd ever fasted at all, wet or dry, was 120 hours or 5 days. So when I passed the 120-hour mark, again, I hit a signpost. It was a big one because now I was in totally uncharted water. This was unexplored territory, literally the edges of my map. I'd never been here before. So every moment after that, I was just looking back and thinking, wow, I have no reference here. I can't ask, I don't know, I've never been. So that was exciting. The 5th night was tough. It was harder for me to go to sleep. I didn't sleep that well. I tossed and turned a lot, woke up pretty early. But the energy of day 6 was pretty great, knowing that I'd gotten there, knowing that this was the final night before the last night, where I was, honing in on 48 hours to go. Oh my God, this is amazing. I can reach out and touch it now. I can see the finish line. This is real. This is gonna happen. And day 6 was this little paradox. I mean, physically, I was definitely exhausted. My reserves were bleeding out and dry, but I felt amazing. I can't explain that. Physically, for sure, exhausted, walking upstairs, walking downstairs, walking uphill, walking downhill, getting up from the sofa, sitting down, physically things were tough, but man, my mind was on fire. Like a mixture of being electrocuted and feeling like your brain is exploding champagne. Just alive, wired. alive. There's just something about walking to the edge of what you claim or what you believe to be your perceived limitations and continuing onward and finding out what you're really capable of. It's like the body and the spirit have this little like quiet understanding. You push and they respond. But these days were not just about endurance. They were about revelation. Each one peeled back another layer about me, about my identity, about my needs, my wants, my personality, my character traits, who I thought I was, who I think I still am, showing me the core of what it means to be human, adaptive. All of us are full of limitless potential if we just have the gumption. Night number 6 of my 7-day hard dry fast was brutal. I tossed and turned all night. I couldn't get comfortable. I was awake basically at midnight and up for day 7, but the finish line was in sight. We're passing the 150-hour mark. I can see the final 18 right there, and just knowing that it's just about bearing it and getting there. So that morning I decided to go for a walk. It was still dark. It was probably like 4 o'clock in the morning. Went out for a drive into the trails. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be amongst nature. It was drizzling and it was about to start raining more, so I had to cover up. It was cold. I had made sure my skin was covered by my rain jacket. I had a hood on, I had gloves on, and it started to really rain. I remember pulling the jacket on and putting the gloves on to maintain my strict adherence of having zero contact with water. But as I walked through the forest, my senses became alive in a way that I have never experienced before. I could hear the rain hitting the ground so loud, hitting my jacket, hitting the leaves and cracking into branches and branches falling, and it was like this amazing cadence or beat or rhythm, but it was so loud, like literally so loud. I was just in awe. Every drop was just like a loud drum beat. There was the smell of wet dirt and grass and mulch and moss and just dew in the air. I mean, it smelled like the forest. Like it really, in the most perfect literal sense, smelled like a forest to me. A smell that I've never smelled, only imagined, only kind of perceived to be if I'm reading about a story or if I see one on maybe in a movie. I was like, I'm in a forest and this is what it smells like. Wow. The green of the evergreen trees, the lushness of a fern. I mean, like to be able to see the leaves of oaks and maple down on the ground on the forest floor and up in the canopy to see the rain falling through and the moonlight piercing through in its places that it could. My senses were so just alive and wired. Vision, hearing, smell, awareness, presence, like touch, everything was just electric and so much sharper and more vivid than I thought I imagined, but it was more than I ever imagined. I could hear branches cracking and creaking in the distance, animals scurrying around. I mean, I was in it, man. Like I was freaking in it, immersed in the environment, truly, like one with the environment as best I can say it. I mean, I could see in the dark. I could literally see in the dark. It was pitch black and I could see like it was clear as day. No lights, no visual aids, barely any moonlight, but I could see perfectly. I felt fully alive, like I was part of the wild itself. Like I was a freaking wildling, like I belonged there, like I'd been there all my life. Just a pure, unfiltered connection with life, with my own proprioception, my body's awareness of itself in time and space. Just amazing. And that walk essentially was the graduation phase for me. It was the commencement of the fast. It was like the culmination of everything the fast awakened in me. Was I enough? Who was I? How could I be without all these things that I've grown so accustomed to having in my life on such a regular basis, that I find value in, validation from, support from, nurturing from, protection from? Being in the forest made me realize it was just me. It was always just me, and it was always going to be plenty enough, and beautifully so, to be just me without all those things. As great as they are, as much as I love them, as much as they give to me, knowing that I was okay just as is was a really cool feeling. My senses, my awareness, my very being was stripped down just to its essence. I wasn't just existing anymore. I was truly alive in the most profound way. So by day 7, I was down 20 plus pounds, almost 3 gallons of water of my original 16 gallons of total body water before I began the 7-day hard dry fast. My body felt different, not weaker, but lighter. Again, senses were beyond heightened. Even the feeling of air on my skin it just felt different. It was like my body had woken up from a long sleep. I'd stripped away everything that was unnecessary, and what remained was pure. And that purity was not just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, psychological. For the first time, I knew what it meant to exist without escape, without help, without distraction or comfort, support. It was a mirror showing me who I really am. To summarize the 7-day hard dry fast, it wasn't just an experience to show that I could survive without food or water for 7 days. It was about thriving in the absence of excess. It was about reconnecting with the raw, unfiltered essence of life. It was about me reminding myself myself that I am more than what I consume, more than what I own, and more than what I achieve. And that you are too, that we all are.
All right, folks, it is December 7th, 1800 hours, local time, 168 hours, or 7 full days of a hard, dry fast. No food, no water, no contact with water for 7 full days. This is about to be my first sip, first bit of water. 168 hours, 7 days. I'm still alive. I lost almost 22 pounds. Been really looking forward to this. I can't even describe it. I literally can't even describe it. It has such a distinct taste. Wow. 7-day hard dry fast in the books. I just had a shower. Feels amazing. Give me some coconut water now. Oh my God, that's incredible. It's weird, like, as much as I want to drink, or as much as I think I'd want to drink, I don't. Like, I don't have this massive, like, demand to just chug. And it also, it's really filling. Like, these sips are, like, really filling in my stomach. So I literally have to sip because I don't have the desire to chug. Even though I want the water, my stomach is just so full, like, already just from a couple of sips, a couple of glasses. This is definitely gonna be a process.
If you've ever felt trapped by the noise, the chaos, or just the constant need for more, maybe it's time to pause. Strip it all away and see what's left. Because sometimes the great discoveries, they come not by adding on, but by letting go. So until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and always freaking get some.